Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by the Art of Education, and I'm your host, Tim Bogatz. Welcome to the first Tuesday in October, which means it is time for the October Mailbag, and I am super excited to welcome on Amanda Heyn. Amanda, how are you?
I am doing great. It could be a little cooler outside. Like, I'm in fall mode, but my wardrobe is in summer mode, and I don't like that. But the leaves are changing here in Wisconsin, and it's going to be okay. We're going to get there, and I'm sure there will be a time very soon where I think it's too cold. So I'm just going to say, okay, great. How are you?
About the same, actually. Why is it still 80 degrees? I don't know. I don't understand. It was 90 one day. Like, what? Why?
Why?
It's not doing it for me. But other than that, I think everything is going well. As always, super excited to dive into the mailbag, answer a bunch of questions. Before we do that, we probably need to introduce yourself. Can you go first?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Amanda Heyn. I'm the Director of Community Engagement at the Art of Education. I have been there for 1 million years. And previous to that, I was an elementary art teacher. So I'm so excited to be on the mailbag again.
Yes, and I'm Tim Bogatz. I host this podcast every week, and I was a longtime art teacher, elementary for a little while, secondary forever. I have also been at the Art of Education for not quite 1 million
999. That 999,000.
Yeah, very, very close to as long as Amanda. We've both been here forever, but we do these mailbag podcasts every month. People seem to love them. Thank you for continuing to listen. Thank you for continuing to send questions. We love hearing from everybody. We love answering all those. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But Amanda, I think you have 1,000 announcements, not quite, but a lot of exciting stuff coming in for October. So can you tell us what's going on soon?
I sure can. So as part of my role here, I oversee, a lot of things, but one of them is the Art of Ed community. So if you don't know, that's a dedicated online space just for art teachers. It's the good parts of social media, right?
Yes.
So yes, we have a lot of things happening in October that I would love to tell you about. Buckle up. So first, I'm going to go in chronological order. October 9th, we have Art Club. Okay. Art Club is a time to come together, hear from an expert, make a little bit of art. This is in conjunction with Flex Curriculum from AOE and Art Sonia. And we are giving away a light box. And if you have seen these, you want one. It is a really cool way to just level up your game in terms of photographing student artwork. Makes it super easy. It's very fun. So come for your chance to win that.
They are beautiful. Cannot recommend the light boxes highly enough.
So great. And then, on October 13th, our costume contest starts. Now, if you know me, Halloween is my favorite holiday. I'm pumped for the costume contest. There will be prizes. So that runs through the end of the month. So you can go ahead and enter into that. Then on October 21st at 6 p.m. Central, we have Pop-Up Studio. This is our time every month to get together and just hang out and make art. So come, bring whatever you're working on. It's just a great time to set aside time for yourself to work on whatever you want to work on. We have people working on, samples for their classroom, but most people, I would say, are bringing their own artwork. We've had sewing projects and printmaking, and it's really cool because everybody's talking about what they're doing and we're learning about different art supplies. And anyway, that also has a giveaway. So if you need a little extra incentive, we're giving away a gift card. So come to that. And then I have one more thing, which is, this is very exciting. This is new.
First time doing this.
First time ever. On October 23rd, we are going live with the Art Ed Radio podcast at the Illinois State Conference at IAEA. So if you are an Illinois teacher, you should be getting information about that. You can also pop into the community and be like, hey, I want to come. There's a post that has all the details, which we can link to in the show notes. But you can find more information about everything I just talked about by going to community.theartofeducation.edu. And we're so excited. We would love to see some of you at our live recording. There's going to be snacks and drinks and prizes, and I think it's going to be a great time. So if you're interested, I'll link you to that and come say hi.
I'm so excited to do a live episode with you. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. And then for those of you who just aren't traveling to Chicago in the next month, we will put that live episode up in the feed sometime in November. So you'll be able to hear what that's all about. The reason we can't turn it around right away, though, is we have a very exciting 2-part podcast for the end of October. We're calling it the Art History Mystery. Yeah. And I don't want to give away too much, but we have a cast of characters. We have a stolen artwork and a really, I think, entertaining podcast for the end of October.
A cast of art teachers specifically.
Yes. So it's going to be really good, and just keep an ear out for that at the end of October. And I'm really looking forward to putting that out there. All right. All of that being said, we have an actual mailbag to get to. Amanda, would you do the honors?
Yeah, let's go ahead and open up the mailbag.
All right. Our first question comes in from somebody who wants to remain anonymous, but they said, my second grade students were doing season trees, adding the leaves in each season with tips and paint. However, my students had a very difficult time handling it, I feel, particularly during cleanup. They were being very loud, getting out of their seats, etc. I honestly was pretty embarrassed when their teacher came to pick them up because they were so crazy. I'm thinking about having them and the other second grade finish their trees with oil pastels instead, but they won't look very nice because they already did half with the paint. Should I give them a second chance? I do think maybe that I could have used some techniques to manage them better, but honestly, both classes I have done this with have been quite overwhelming. Maybe it's just too early in the year to be doing any paint. Okay, so multiple questions there. Amanda, I will let you address whichever of those you want first.
Sure. I love this question. I think this person already knows the answer to this question and is maybe looking for some validation. So it sounds like it's overwhelming and maybe just too early in the year to be doing any paint. I would take a moment, like just take a beat. I would finish them with oil pastels and then reassess the situation so you can find a way forward. And then when you are ready to paint again, I would limit it so they're really learning one new skill at a time. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good option. Honestly, like my first thought was like, what do you think about just letting this project go? Like telling kids,
it's okay. Hey, it's okay.
Yeah, like behavior was not great. I don't want to finish this with paint. I don't think you can handle it. We'll try paint a little bit later this year. And then, just move on to whatever's next. And then think about like when you do try paint again, what does that look like? What do you need to think about? What do you need to plan for logistically? How do you set that all up? And just put a little more forethought into what you're going to be doing and think about how can you set yourself up for success when it is time to paint again.
Yeah, I think I would also be reflective in how you phrase this to the kids. Maybe instead of we're not doing this because you can't handle it, it's more we're not doing this because I haven't prepared you, or I reflected in we don't quite have the skills to clean up effectively, or I need to rethink how that might look. Because really, if they're second graders and they haven't painted a lot, that can be overwhelming to them. I remember when I was student teaching, I was working in a really, really high needs school. And I did this lesson with tempera paint. It was early in the year. I don't think I've ever told this story on the podcast. And all of a sudden during cleanup, I looked over and there was a group of like 4 or 5 kids like spreading paint all over their arms and hands. And I was flabbergasted. And my cooperating teacher and I reflected on it after the fact. And it's like, these students, they've never finger painted before. They don't, they haven't had access to these materials before. And so we can't assume that they're even going to know what quote unquote they should do with them, or what is respectful, or how to wash them. And so I think that it was really good. It sounded really reflective when you said, maybe I could have prepared them better for this. And I think that's a really good thing to reflect on and figure out sort of what you could do differently. I think if you start, obviously you're going to paint with them again, but when you start to paint with them, I'll say, my advice is to start with watercolor or temper cake. So you're taking out the factor of this wet blob of paint that you need to clean up, right?
Yeah.
Because really they need to learn how to use a paintbrush, how to wash that brush in between colors, how to properly clean a paintbrush. And that's all way easier to do when there's not very much pigment in the bristles, right? They can learn the skill without having that extra layer. And then once they've got that down, you could move on to liquid paint. And I would limit it. Maybe you're painting with one color the first time, right? Because then you're also sort of just scaffolding those skills. One other idea I have for you is limiting how many kids are cleaning up at a time at the sink. So I often would have my younger kids, until I could scaffold those skills with everybody, I'd have them put their paintbrushes in a bucket of water at the end of class. And then either I would wash them or have 1 to 3 responsible kids in that class wash them, or even call a small group over and teach them how to wash them. But I'm not teaching everybody at the same time. I'm just teaching a couple of kids. So one table, if you have color coding or whatever, you could rotate through, but just sort of limiting the amount of kids who could be causing chaos at cleanup during one time can be a good way to manage that.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think just simplifying at every step of the process can be helpful. Fewer things when it comes to paint, fewer choices when it comes to colors, with brushes, with how many kids are at the sink. Just think about all of those things. Think about every step. How can you simplify it? Because it's going to be easier for you to handle as the teacher. It's going to be easier for them to learn when there are not as many things that they have to learn at the same time. So I think scaffolding is the perfect word. Think about, what is your starting point? How can you build up from there? And just think about it as a process. And I think that's a great way to approach it. So That's really good advice. So our next question is from Terrell in Ohio. Terrell says, I'm going to have to be gone for about a week for a scheduled surgery, nothing serious. What do your sub-plans look like? What do you think is most helpful for someone who is coming into your art room?
Okay, well, first, a scheduled surgery that you have to be out for a week for does sound somewhat serious. I mean, maybe not life-threatening, but my first thought is please be gentle with yourself. That's not what you asked, but let's just recognize that might be a thing in your life. Okay, moving on to the question of the subtub, or not the you didn't ask about the subtub. I'm going to tell you about the subtub.
For the subtub.
Sub plans. So I had a subtub, and this was one location where everything was located. So yes, you have to worry about lessons, but I would argue you have to equally worry about everything else that person needs to be successful in your classroom. So that would be seating charts, emergency procedures, safety things related to students, whether that's isolated information that you need to share about their IEPs. Is somebody a runner in your room? Can somebody not use scissors, right? Allergies, if you have that in your classroom. So any safety information related to students that it would be critical for this person to know. Give them a point person or two to go to for help if they have questions. And then I would advocate for very easy lessons. And if you're only going to be gone a week, I would choose something that spans multiple grade levels. So we don't know what grade level you teach, but if you teach elementary, that's one plan for K2 and another one for 3-5. Or if it's high school, maybe every single class is doing a similar drawing activity, right? It allows the subs to focus more on keeping the classroom running smoothly. And it also means way less prep for you. I would also say you might want to have a backup also if you need to be gone for longer than a week. So you're not stressed about that. And in case, God forbid, you have complications or something, maybe have 2 lessons prepped for each grade level. If you are a Flex member with AOE's Flex curriculum, there are a ton of one-day lessons. So you can go ahead and look through those. And then my last piece of advice would be, I always had, I think I've talked about this before, a designated member of my team who would go check in with the sub.
Right. Yep.
Because sometimes the sub is not going to come and say, hey, I'm need help, right? But I would have somebody go in and make sure, okay, the sub is using my really good watercolor paper because they don't know what paper, right? Or they got confused. So I would give somebody that job of just checking in each morning, maybe like morning and midday, just to make sure like the plans are being followed, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. I like that. When you said the idea of just like one lesson that spans multiple grade levels, I really like that. I think keeping it simple is super important. We have a really good article I like a lot called How to Simplify and De-Stress Your Subplans. And that has a lot of similar advice, but it also has really good lessons as well. So we'll link to that along with a lot of the Flex one-day lessons. So check your show notes and you can see what we're talking about with all of those things. And yeah, I would just echo a lot of the things that you said, Amanda. Just make sure that your sub plans have that vital info that you talked about. I always add in with my seating charts students who can help and students to watch. So if you have questions or the sub has questions about what's going on in the art room, here are the students that can help you with that. And then, students who may cause issues for whatever reason, I put that in as well. I think that's incredibly helpful. But going back to the idea of keeping it simple, I would just say, like, so many teachers stress out about having the perfect lessons or the perfect sub plans, and you don't need to do that. Like this 1 week is not going to make or break your students' art experience. Like, it's not going to be the end of the world for art this year if they don't have the greatest week. Just do something simple that's fun, that's engaging for the kids. If it's easier for the sub, then it's going to be easier when you come back. Like you said, Amanda, if they can focus on keeping things running smoothly, you have a lot fewer fires put out when you come back to your classroom. So just, I would suggest a lesson that's enjoyable and fun that nobody needs to stress about. And then when you get back after this week, you can get everything back on track how you want it to be, and you'll be just fine. Your students will be just fine. And then last idea is, if I can also recommend, if you're a Pro Learning member, I love the Planning for Substitutes Pro Pack.
Yes.
There's so many great ideas and great resources in there that are definitely worthwhile and definitely worth checking out. Okay, our next question. This comes from Bonnie in Arkansas. Bonnie says, looking for advice on how to deal with some middle schoolers that don't care. Aren't we all? Can I get them going with my teaching style or the materials we use or the lesson? I feel like whatever I do is falling flat. I'm honestly ready to just give them some coloring pages with 6-7 on them so they actually do something. Please help.
I mean, honestly, maybe try that.
I was gonna say, like, I don't hate it. Like, I've seen a few similar things kind of making the rounds on social media. Like, why not have your kids draw a giant 6-7? Let's talk about bubble letters. Let's talk about design and color theory and like how to fill in patterns and whatever else. However you design that, it might be all right. But for real though, like, Amanda, what would your advice be for middle schoolers here?
I mean, I think Bonnie's onto something here, which is that you actually do have to tap into the things that they like. Now, does that need to be the memes that they're into? Like, not necessarily, but the content does need to be exciting to them. I also think that middle schoolers really thrive when they connect with the teacher. My kiddo, my personal child, entered middle school last year, my oldest, and had a wonderful teacher who they had all these weird inside jokes, and they built a door out of Cheez-Its one day because that's cracker. You know what I mean? And my kid really worked for that teacher,
Yeah.
and really rose to the occasion. And so I think that maybe the first thing to do is really help them get to know you. Show them a funny picture of you as a middle schooler. Did you have braces? Like, I particularly had denim headgear. It was really a time, right? But that would be so funny to a group of kids. Tell them what your interests and hobbies are. Tim, I don't know if it's an article or you've just talked about this, but you used to do like a quiz about the teacher.
Oh, yeah. I think it was a video from, I don't know, I want to say 2015, 2016, long time ago, but the idea is still valid. I gave kids a quiz about the teacher. I did it on like the first day of school, but you can do it anytime. And you just tell them like it's a pop quiz and they think it's all serious and worrisome, but really it's just questions about me, questions about my interests, and, also just ridiculous things like, what did I have for breakfast this morning? And I have to guess, like, did I eat Lucky Charms? Did I have a muffin? Whatever. Just really fun and lighthearted, but lets them get to know you. And yeah, that's a fun one that can do exactly what you're talking about, like help kids get to know you. So that's an idea that might be worth pursuing.
I also think it's a good idea to ask them what they'd like to see more of, right? What do they want to make art about? What do they want to learn? What is a material that maybe they've never had access to before that maybe you could bring out for a special occasion? Whatever it is, right? I think asking them straight out, like, what are you hoping to get out of this? Like, might give you some ideas. Again, I am not advocating for planning your entire curriculum around the whims of 12 and 13-year-olds. Like, not what I'm advocating for. And also, I think you might be able to get some ideas that way of things you could incorporate, right? Also, I think gamification can go a long way with some kids these age. We talked about John Hansen's gamification, I think.
Just last month.
Mailbag. So his handle is at Mr. Hansen_art. He just has a bunch of great ideas. You can tell he really connects with his kids. He has some really fun things going on in his classroom. So I would look to him and other people on social media who are teaching middle school in a really fun and creative way. And, if you're on social media, to get a dose of a snippet of some ideas while you're scrolling on social media. Obviously, come into the community. You can ask this same question, and I'm sure people in the middle school discussion area would be happy to give you some ideas there. And then I think my last bit of advice is just give choices where you can, right? Like, these kids they just want to control anything they can because they don't have a lot, but they're getting to that age. They're just a weird in between age, right? And so whether that's the medium or the subject matter, or they are voting on which order you're going to do the projects, like something to give them a little bit of just control over what you're doing, I think can go a long way.
Yeah, I think having a little bit of voice is good. And yeah, as you were talking, Amanda, about giving them some choices or asking them some questions, I think just a student survey would be a really good idea, and just ask them, like, hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to learn about? What do you want to try? And I think talking about them like, hey, I want to incorporate your ideas. I want to make you part of this class, make you part of making the choices on what we do. That really gets them to feel like you're on the same team with them. And that can go a long way with that age. So I think that's a really good approach. But I wanted to make one point with Bonnie. She asked, can I get them going with my teaching style? And I think there are people sometimes who feel like they need to change their teaching style or change their personality to be more dynamic or more exciting or whatever. Don't do that. Yeah. Okay? Like you need to be yourself. You need to be authentic, because I think authenticity goes further than anything else in the classroom. And so if you're trying to change who you are, change how you teach, kids are going to see through that immediately. So I would say just keep going with what you're doing, incorporate some of those different ideas that we talked about, but don't change who you are. Don't change what your teaching style is.
Yeah.
Okay, Amanda, I know you had something that you wanted to bring from the community. So can you kind of share what we have next year?
Yeah. So every week in the community, Jen, our amazing community manager, poses the big question of the week. And I just thought this week's was, well, by the time this podcast is released, last week's, but it'll be there. It was worthy of discussion. So the question was, how do you balance being a source of support for others, colleagues, families, and students, while protecting your own energy? And the reason I thought this was worth discussing is because these are some direct quotes from the community. Quote, it's very difficult. Quote, constant struggle. Quote, hard to say no. And maybe my favorite quote, I don't. I feel constantly on the defense and a primal need to advocate and show up for my content area. Is that real or self-imposed? Who's to say? So, just maybe we could talk about it because it seems like this one really hit a nerve, which is what I love about the community. Like people are not afraid to be real and be vulnerable in there. And I think
I was just going to say that real talk is good because that is a tough balance to find. That's something a lot of people struggle with. And so, yeah, I think it's a good discussion to have.
Yeah. And I think the art teacher is often looked to provide more support in some ways than other teachers. And also when you are worrying about 500 kids instead of just 24, it's just another layer of mental energy that you have to deal with on a weekly basis. So I think the crux of the question is how to protect your own energy. And last Mailbag, we did a really deep dive, into how to say no. So I think I would go back and listen to
Boundaries was a theme last month.
Yes. But here I think it's even a little bit bigger because it's like, how do you as a person that exists in the world protect your own energy? It's about more than boundaries and saying no. And I think for me, what I have found, I've personally been working on this a lot in therapy. Come with me, if you will, to my armchair expert session. But like you have to do things that fill your cup back up, right? You have to have energy to protect. If you don't have any energy, then, you can't give anything to anybody, including yourself. And so I, with my therapist, have coined this term called fun stacking. You've heard about habit stacking, and maybe some of you are doing that right now, right? You're on your prep and you're listening to the podcast, you're driving to work and you're listening to the podcast. But I have been trying to find ways to just infuse fun into my life in conjunction with other things. So I had to run a bunch of errands with my kids the other day, and I was like, this was not on our list. We didn't really have time for it, but I was like, hey, there's this really wild antique store next to Home Depot. Like, do you guys want to go in here? And they were like, yes, right? Or when we are, now it's going to be fun to do the podcast in Illinois, but that's a travel, that's a work trip. Yeah. You know where else we're going? We're going to medieval times. Okay. I'm getting a crown. So like, think about how can you fill your cup back up? How can you inject these moments of joy and fun and lightness? Really quick, I think a couple other things. Think about your life as a pie chart. Like, how much energy are you giving to others currently? Are you happy with that? With that visualization? Like, I might even draw it. Personally, I'm like 10%. 10% is my threshold, I've recently decided. And if I've already reached capacity, then sorry, it's a no. And then rest, right? Rest and taking care of your body are actually the most important things. Because if you don't have that, you don't have anything. And so how are you resting? Tim, do you know the name of the book? It's called Sacred Rest, I think.
Yeah.
Is that the actual title?
The 7 Types of Sacred Rest.
Yes. We had a wonderful keynote speaker, Dr. Dalton Smith.
Founder Dalton Smith.
Yes. Who spoke at one of our conferences, one of our now conferences, just about all the different ways you can rest. And I think it was incredibly valuable. So I might recommend that book too, if you're struggling here.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I just make the point? Like, I love this fits so well with your personality. You're talking about having fun, and it worked in both like scheduling, stacking, and pie charts for your fun.
That is fun. That's fun to me.
Nope, not a criticism. I'm just saying it's very illustrative of your personality. So,
Yeah, you gotta like put it on your calendar. You have to put fun on the calendar, otherwise you're not gonna do it.
No, I love it. And I think it is, and you need to prioritize yourself. And I think the question is just, how do you prioritize yourself? What are the things that are important to you, and what are the things that make you feel good? And so, I make sure that I spend time with my wife and my kids and my dog. I like all of them. Okay. I try and make sure I hang out with my friends at least once every week. I make sure that I'm, going for runs because I love to go for a run. Just all of those things that sort of make me feel better and make me happy. Though you prioritize those, and like I said, other people may not have a dog that's as cool as my dog, or they may not, like their kids that much. I don't know, but the point is, like, it's going to be different for everybody. But I think you just need to find those things that make you happy, make you feel better, and figure out how you're going to prioritize those.
Yeah. I will say the community did have some great advice, including exercise, eating right, seeing a therapist, having fun, not checking email or other work-related tasks outside of work, setting really clear boundaries about when you're on and off, so to speak, at work. And I thought that was all great advice. And that conversation is still going. So please jump in if you haven't already.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right. And then our next question, I think our final question, this is from Lynn. And Lynn says, I have my observation coming up in the next couple of weeks. What kind of lesson would you pick if you knew you were going to be observed? Do you stick with something more basic so you can keep everything under control? Or do you go for something a little flashier and a little better so it looks like you're a better teacher, even if that means things could go wrong? I'm intrigued. Amanda, where do you come down on this?
This is such a good question because I'm an overachiever, right? We've just established this.
Okay, so I literally put in my notes, and we'll get to this, I put in the phrase chronic overachiever. So anyway, go ahead and give your answer, though.
But when I think about this, I think this is not the time to overachieve. I really think that the most important thing is that you feel comfortable and confident in what you're doing. So if I know an admin's coming in, I want to make sure it is something I've taught before. I've done it. This is not the time to try something new and flashy. If you're a first year teacher, choose something that feels at least somewhat familiar. You've done it in practicum. You have done at least, drawing with charcoal with your kids before, right? Like some touch point that you have so you don't feel totally out of the water. I think if you get any pre-observation paperwork, you're going to use that as a rubric to make sure you're hitting what they want to see. Hopefully you're getting that. My district was really good about that. Maybe not all places are, but and then I think I would also plan a little wiggle room and then have a backup activity if you need it, so you're not running out of time. Like a lot of people say overplan, and I would say yes, but have the main part of that lesson maybe be underplanned and then have a couple of extension activities that you could bring in if you need to. And I think both simple and flashier lessons can showcase your talent as a teacher. But again, what is really happening as a result of your observation? Right. If you get good marks, great, you're good. Excellent marks, they're not really making a difference, but bad marks are making a difference, right? And so it is, no one really cares if you're getting 4s across the board. And I'm going from a Danielson, and I don't even know if that's the way they still do it. No one cares if you're getting perfect marks. Mm-hmm. You're not going around like bragging to your teacher. Like, it's not really even a point of discussion in my experience. But and also some admin are like, well, I'm never going to give anybody.
Some admins have directives that they can't give perfect marks across the board.
So you just want to be solid, right? If we're talking Great British Bake Off, you're just making it through to the next round. You do not need to be Star Baker, okay?
You don't need a Paul Hollywood handshake.
You don't need a Paul Hollywood handshake. You just need to be like, yeah, this is pretty good. You did well. Because if things go awry, like then you could be put on an improvement plan, right? Just go with what you know. I'm rambling now, but just go with what you know. What do you think, Tim?
No, I said I was thinking back to the Hippocratic Oath of all things, where doctors say first do no harm, and like that's your job. Like you got to make sure you're not gonna like really ruin things. So, yeah, don't try and get too flashy. Don't try and get too special with what you're doing, because even if you plan a great lesson, a super flashy one that's exciting, kids are engaged, it's great. What do you get out of that? Like what do you get? Like a little bit better marks on your observation, and that may be important to some people, but like I said, those people are the chronic overachievers, and like you really aren't. Your principal doesn't care that much, and they just want to see that you are a competent, maybe bordering on good teacher, that they can trust in their school, and that's all you need to be. And so, like you said, just go for that basic lesson that is going to be solid. You keep things under control, and you just sort of check that off the list and move on to the next thing. Like the observation is not the end all be all. All you need to do is pass it, do fine with it, and you'll be good to go. And I think that's my biggest piece of advice. And I would also say, I don't know if we need to turn this into a whole different discussion, but so many people think of this as, I guess, a summative assignment, for lack of a better word. But like, can you think about your observation as a formative and just, ask your principal, like, hey, I'm doing this kind of lesson. Could you look for these things? Like, can you help me, with my teaching? I want to get better at these things. Can you keep an eye on those? And then they're going to know that you're reflective and that you're wanting to get better, and that can go a long way too. So if there's a spot to kind of work an idea like that in, I think that would be worthwhile as well.
I would like to double down on that and say that's such a good point. Teach how you normally teach and be open to feedback. That's the whole point of the observation. So that's what they really want to see.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Now, I want to close this out here with a little celebration. We also asked in the community when we were looking for mailbag questions for celebrations, and Robin has a small one. Robin said, a small win. I finally put up my passive-aggressive note, and I think it's working.
Tell us more about that.
And she says, you see, I started hanging black netting my first year to help hang work more easily, which is pretty awesome. But this teacher has been there for a long time. A lot of G's in the word long. So this teacher's been there a long time. Keeps hanging her stuff there, like regular calendars, lunch calendars, weird old posters, etc. It's bizarre, in all caps. And then Robin says, this year I said no more. I put up a very kind sign beside the display that reads, teacher and student friends, please don't hang things here, as this area is designated for student artwork. Thank you. And then she says, so far, so good, with ellipses after it. I love this. I love, like we talked about, like stand up for yourself, advocate for yourself, advocate for your program. And, it may be just small wins like this, but people want to look at your kids' artwork way more than they want to look at weird old posters and lunch calendars. So get your kids' art.
And I think that was such a great way to handle it. Maybe that teacher didn't know, right? We assume it seems like they should have known, but maybe they didn't. And so that note seems kind and straightforward, clear as kind. So we love it.
Very effective work, Robin. Well done. All right. I think that is a great note for us to end on. So Amanda, thank you so much for another mailbag, and we'll look forward to a live episode about 3 weeks from now.
Sounds exciting. Bye, everybody.
Okay, that will do it for the October mailbag. Quick reminders before we go. Hop into the Art of Ed community for all the good stuff this month. Amanda mentioned it all at the top of the show. Art Club on October 9th, costume contest kicking off October 13th, pop-up studio on the 21st, and our first ever live Art Ed radio recording at IAEA on October 23rd. So if you're in Illinois, if you're coming to see us, come say hi and grab a snack. We're going to have a party. It's going to be a good time. And then keep an ear out at the end of the month for our Art History Mystery podcast with our stolen artwork, our cast of art teachers. It's going to be a ride, so it'll be a fun one. Hey, but as always, we appreciate everyone who wrote into the mailbag. We love having the chance to answer those and the chance to reflect on all of those different challenges, just helping younger kids building their painting skills step by step, setting up the sub plans that work for you, work for your subs, finding ways to reach middle schoolers, protecting your own energy, and dealing with observations. Like there's a lot going on, but there always is, because it takes a lot to be a teacher. But I think it's good to remember that we're all here, we're all in this together, and we're all willing to help each other. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So please continue to send us questions, whatever you might need advice on or just want some thoughts on. Amanda and I love reading them. We love answering them. We love putting together these podcasts for you. So thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you again next week. Art Ed Radio is produced by The Art of Education with audio engineering from Michael Crocker. Like I said, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend. And don't forget to follow and leave us a quick 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It really helps others find the show. We'll see you next week.